I read 7 books in the 28th week of 2026. I rated 2 of them 5 stars. Let's get into my thoughts and ratings. It Could Have Been Her by Lisa Jewell follows Jane, and one day she's out walking her dogs and she stumbles across a small white terrier all on its own. The girl this dog was staying with is missing, and Jane decides that it's her job to return this dog to its rightful owners. But when she shows up to the house, it immediately gives her pause because she has a dark history with this house. Soon, Jane finds herself investigating this girl's disappearance and gets entangled in dark family secrets. We were first introduced to Jane in Lisa Jewell's 2025 novel, Don't Let Him In, and seeing her pop up again was a welcome surprise. She is smart, so full of gumption, and incredibly tenacious. Throughout the story, we follow past and present timelines and multiple POVs. If you loved The Family Upstairs by Lisa Jewell and you're looking for something with similar vibes, this is definitely it. This immediately took me back to exactly how I felt when I was reading that book, and it just grabbed a hold of me and never let go. The family in this story is a whole nother level of messed up. Each person is more complicit than the last, and the manipulation and betrayal runs deep. This book had me questioning everything and everyone at all times. I grew attached to a few characters in this book, and then on the other hand, wished nothing but the worst for the others. This was deliciously dark, equally as heartbreaking, had twists and turns that I never saw coming, and definitely is a story I will never forget. I rated this book 5 stars. Not With a Bang by Temi O is an apocalyptic story following a dysfunctional family and how they make their way back to each other during global catastrophe. While this is a sci-fi story and does have elements of horror and thriller, I definitely feel like those things take a back seat and we more focus on this dysfunctional family and all of their hidden secrets and dramas. I think if you go into the story thinking that it's going to be a nonstop action, apocalyptic horror, sci-fi kind of read that just gets your heart racing, that you might be disappointed. Not to say that there aren't moments of sci-fi horror and dread and thrills and all those things, but that's really not what this story is. I'm somebody who can kind of roll with the punches and appreciate a book for what it is and what the author is trying to say, and I feel like I was able to do that when I was reading this story, but I could totally understand how somebody couldn't if they went into it with those expectations. This is told in multiple perspectives from every member of the family, and we get a lot of flashback scenes throughout the story to kind of build up who these characters are, what happened to their family, how they ended up dysfunctional and estranged, just all about what drew them apart and how this devastation brings them back together. It's full of tragedy, desperation, deception, broken trust, disappointment, and miscommunication, but it's also full of reconciliation and hope. It's messy and it's sad, it pulled at my heartstrings. There were moments that had my heart racing, especially in the beginning. And while I didn't particularly think that any of the characters were likable, I thought that they were all compelling in their different ways, and I thought they were well fleshed out enough, and I understood who they were, what they stood for, and why they were making the decisions that they were. I felt that they were all intriguing to follow. Ultimately, I thought this is a well-written story about family, and I definitely would check out more by this author. I rated it 3.75 stars. Off the Reservation by Stephen Graham Jones publishes on October 13th. This is an Indigenous horror book, and it is the sequel to The Only Good Indians, set 5 years later. It follows Nate Yellowtail after he nearly lost his life in an accident. He soon finds himself aboard a camper van, and he is going on a mission with 4 older Blackfeet to retrieve the bones of a lone Blackfeet boy who died at the infamous Carlisle Indian Industrial School and bring these bones back home. But unexpectedly, something comes back with the bones. Man, this was good. In typical Stephen Graham Jones fashion, he slowly builds up the intricacies of these stories and just really sets the scene. Weaving in Indigenous history and offering just superb imagery to lay the foundation for chaos, and boy does this get chaotic. Seriously, he pulls out all the stops for this masterfully crafted road trip adventure story. It has revenge, reparation, deception, gore, nightmarish psychological devastation, and so much heart. Without spoilers, this had one of my all-time favorite horror tropes, and it was done spectacularly. This made me sick to my stomach, it had me on the edge of my seat, it pulled at my heartstrings multiple times, and ultimately it's tied for first place as my favorite Stephen Graham Jones book, right alongside Mongrels, and I rated it 5 stars. Augusta Pine Does Not Exist by Emily Lloyd Jones is a YA cyberpunk thriller, and it follows a girl who was once not known as Augusta Pine. 3 years ago, when she was 15, she was living under her real identity, but then she was facing a very harsh prison sentence for unaliving someone. But she was offered an opportunity to avoid prison and instead live under a new identity and become an undercover spy hacker. This is set in a futuristic world where basically technology is in every single thing and every aspect of life. So there are a ton of cyber criminals, and Augusta Pine's job is to stop them. Augusta Pine is working on a new assignment and lands her in Portland, Oregon, and this is really bad and risky because her grandmother lives there, and she decides that she's going to rent the apartment next door, and this has terrible consequences. She's now in a race for her life, and the clock is quickly counting down. My girl Brie, who you should all be following, I will tag her, says that this book gives Kim Possible vibes, and I could not agree more. My hand starts to hurt so much when I'm holding these books up for so long. This was fun and fast-paced. It was complex, but easy to understand. So easy to fly through. Had non-stop action. I swear that there was not a lull moment, not even once. And it had many little tender moments that got me in my feels. This was genuinely a really good YA thriller. I kind of shy away from YA because I'm always worried that it's going to read really young, but luckily that was not the case with this book whatsoever. I also typically don't gravitate towards spy thrillers. I'm more of a domestic thriller type of person, so even though this is outside of my typical kind of thriller, it really was good, and I had a really good time reading this. It was an enjoyable experience, and I rated it 4 stars. Who Took Eden Mulligan by Sharon Dempsey is an investigative thriller following a woman's false confession of unaliving 4 people and how it connects to a cold case, the disappearance of a mother of 5, Eden Mulligan, who vanished during a violent time in Northern Ireland's history known as the Troubles. We follow D.I. Stowe and forensic pathologist Lainey as they work to uncover what happened to Eden Mulligan all those years ago in order to solve the present-day unalivings and get to the bottom of why this woman falsely confessed. This was a very complex story, rich in history that I knew a little about, but learning about it through the lens of fiction was a very impactful and compelling learning experience, while also keeping me entertained with the rich character depth. This book really focuses on how complicity is an act of violence itself, that just because one person maybe didn't participate in the said violence, that their hands are still dirty. This was full of violent political intrigue, the importance of justice, the lasting impact of trauma, unresolved conflicts, and ultimately atonement. The way the human psyche is explored in the story was especially fascinating to me. Just the way that people can justify nearly anything in order to save themselves is horrifying yet strikingly obvious. This made me think, it made me learn, it made me very angry, and I thought it was very well done. I rated it 4.25 stars. Hot Girl Murder Club by Ashley Winstead is a mystery thriller, and this surrounds Scout, and she's an aspiring actress and singer. And 10 years ago, her sister Georgia was unalived at a Hollywood party, and the perpetrator was never caught. Now in present day, there is an unaliver that is making headlines with targeted attacks, and all the signs point to the perpetrator being Scout. Throughout the story, we follow multiple perspectives, and we have then and now timelines, and we slowly start to uncover what happened all those years and how it led to what's happening now. This story is set in Hollywood, so we have an aspiring singer, aspiring actress, aspiring model, as well as detectives that come into play. There are so many moving parts in this story. It is so full of manipulation and deception and blackmail, drama, cover-ups, and tons of power struggles. This got dark and deep. We get social and political commentary, the development of sisterly bonds, amazing good for her moments, and I was just locked in. This kept me guessing, pulled at my heartstrings, filled me with rage, and ultimately I just thought it was stunning. I rated it 4.5 stars. The Whisper by Chelsea Iverson is a witchy horror thriller that publishes on July 28th. It follows 4 friends who, in their youth, learn to hear the whisper of the trees and harness the magic from their roots. But one day, one of the friends, Quinn, dies tragically and the magic goes silent. It's the 15th anniversary of her death, and the girls are called back to their hometown because the whispers have returned, and they're forced to confront what happened all of those years ago. It's witchy, it's magical, it's full of drama, and it does have one of my favorite tropes, which is when characters have to go back to their hometown and confront a past they've been running from. It's told in past and present timelines, and we get POVs from all 4 of the friends, and we figure out what happened all those years ago and what's up now. I gotta say, this book felt very YA at times, not necessarily with the subject matter, but how it was told. It is labeled as both adult and young adult on Goodreads, so maybe go into it with the expectation of it feeling a bit young. It has themes of protection, not only of one's family and self, but of their sacred place. It focuses on self-exploration, friendships, and their various seasons, and how haunting secrets can bind you together with someone for forever. This was fine. I honestly just didn't find myself as immersed in the story as I was hoping. This is described as atmospheric, and I honestly just didn't really feel that. My biggest qualm with this story is the magic itself, and the magic itself is a very big element of the story. I don't really know how to explain the vibe beyond saying that it felt juvenile. I didn't feel the explanation of how these people got their magic, how they use it, and all of that was laid out in a way that was intriguing or spoke to me, if that makes sense. Because it was such a big element of the story and I didn't vibe with it, every time it got brought up, I was taken out of the story. Therefore, really affected the reading experience. I did not hate this book by any means. I just think that I wasn't the target audience for it, and maybe you will be. So if it sounds good to you, you should definitely check it out. But yeah, just wasn't really my vibe, and I rated it 2 stars. Thank you so much for watching. Please drop me a comment and let me know your favorite book that you read last week. My favorite is a tie between these 2, really, but if I had to pick one, I guess I'd have to go with Off the Reservation by Stephen Graham Jones.